Well, as there seems to be nobody else here, I'll start that because there's no date. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Shills Aftershow. We're having a nice chat. We're chilling out. And hopefully there's a few of you of us here going, yay, talk about this, talk about that. And we'll just ignore you because we can. But there's a few of us still here. AB Science is still here. Tattie-Bogle's still here. Yeah, Bob the Science Guy's still here. I have no idea who's still here. I'm really annoyed that Dick's not here to do his introduction. You bastard.
Are you annoyed by the lack of Dick?
I am annoyed by the lack of
I was
Dick.
going to make a comment, but I don't think I can even go right into that. No.
Go on, Bob. You go into the lack of Dick.
I'm not going to go into the lack of Dick. Dick had family stuff to do. He had to go run out and do that real quick. So I think he's coming back.
That's okay then.
Somebody filled up the diaper or some crap.
Someone filled up the diaper or filled up the dick. One of the two. It's all good.
Yeah, well, he had family stuff to do.
All right. So, everyone who's joining us in the chat, wonderful to see you again. We just wanted to extend the show that we had just now, mainly because we had a whole big video still, and we were very slow getting through the 1.5 minute video from Anthony Riley, and that pretty much took us 2 hours to get through that shit. So we've decided to have the little after show and look at the next video, which is going to be the ever so lovely and beautiful and hugely intelligent person named Daryl Marble.
Oh. AB.
Yeah?
Do we have to? Seriously, I've not got much wine left.
All right, let's make a pact, guys. Let's make a pact, and we're gonna watch the whole video. How long's the video?
It's 10 minutes, but by my calculation, that would require us another 10 hours to get through.
Okay, so why don't we watch the 10-minute video, and then we'll just take it apart piece by piece, rather than do it live.
10 minutes is a long time to play. I say we make a deal of 2 minutes. Minimum of 2 minutes we play, and then we look at whatever the last 2 minutes plus stoppage time involved.
Gotcha.
So
all right, I can
if he doesn't take a breath until 2 minutes 10, we take a break at 2 minutes 10 because we don't want to interrupt the flow of his video to make him sound like an idiot, even though he probably isn't.
God forbid. All right.
Yes.
No.
Hang on. We have to get Tattie to do it. Tattie.
No.
Well, actually, before we jump into the video, who do we still have on the panel tonight? So we've clearly got myself and the drunken barman and Bob. Who else have we got tonight?
I'm
not
drunk.
Yeah, I'm still here.
I'm here.
And we have Bert.
Hey, Amy's here. That sexy voice came straight through.
Hello.
I believe Bert's still here because I just seemed him flat from unmuted to muted. Bert?
Yep, he's still here.
Yeah, no, I'm still here.
Yes.
The main driver behind it because he was very eager in the background. He was very eager to attack this video. So
I was hoping he was still here.
Well, actually, there is one.
Reason just flashed up.
Shh.
Go ahead.
There's one spot that I would like to posit, which is probably about 2 minutes in, maybe a minute and a half in, and in my opinion, it kind of covers a lot of what has been discussed up till now.
All right. So with that, shall we get cracking? Tattie, have we got it queued up and are we ready to go?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah, baby. No. Come on. Give it to us.
Crank that.
Kinky.
Okay. Oh, yeah. And I might have a wee trick up my sleeve as well. Here we go.
Oh, I like this one.
hate
One
this
of the things that I
intro.
find odd about this society that we live in is how willing and aggressively people will ridicule those of us who do not place our faith in these so-called professionals and these space agencies, NASA in particular. The way I see it, we're the ones who are just perceptive enough to look around, understand where we are, and most importantly of all, understand when we're being trolled with complete nonsense.
Oh,
let me show you this
my
article.
life.
NASA shares image of the sun resembling a jack-o'-lantern. This is an article from Fox News. Okay, and here's video already played. All right. NASA on Sunday got into the Halloween spirit and posted an image of the sun that resembled a flaming jack-o'-lantern. NASA chief says Pluto should be a planet. This is actually a separate article.
Yeah, call it.
Pareidolia. Right, Mr. Marble, you look like an intelligent person. Doesn't fucking mean you are one. The fucking sun can look like a jack-o'-lantern. Doesn't fucking mean it is one. For fuck's sake. It's a well-documented fact about our brains that we like to see fucking patterns. Whether they be normal or fucking that very vague, yeah, there's sort of a pattern fucking thing there. Our brains will fucking find them because our brains like fucking patterns. You, unfortunately, do look like a moron. I'm very sorry, because many of the words that come out your mouth, because that's what I associate you with. The sun does not like a jack-o'-lantern. You're a fucking tit. AB, please translate it. Everything I've just said.
Well, yeah, pretty much. I mean, come on. This is clearly a PR stunt from NASA, because if you look at the article that he is actually looking at, and he's got on screen, it says the space agency said the photo was taken on October the 8th, 2014. That means that they have been sitting on this image for quite a while, and they decided to release it at the right time as a bit of a PR stunt. You know, it's science outreach and you want to release a little funny image. They've trawled through a lot of data and they saw this and I thought, that looks funny and weirdly apt for Halloween. So let's release that around Halloween because that will bring a smile on people's face. They're not trolling you, even though it would be fucking awesome if their intention was to troll the marble, but yeah, they're just not. They're just having a bit of a laugh because, funnily enough, scientists do have a sense of humor.
Are you sure? I've met you.
Yeah.
You're a scientist.
Yeah.
I just remember you getting very, very, very drunk. I'm not saying it was my fault, but well, what the fuck, it was my fault.
Well, no, I was a willing participant that particular evening.
It's a PR stunt. You're right. Let's move on.
It's just a PR stunt. I mean, but let's see how he's going to fuck this one up for 10 minutes straight.
Coming at you.
Very cool. Speaking of Pluto and NASA, along the lines of also being trolled, you remember this one? Where they actually had a picture of Pluto and then outline of Pluto the dog from Disney in the same shape. Yeah, okay. That type of stuff happens with NASA often. Anyway, let's move on.
Same thing, continue.
The space agency said the photo was taken October 8th, 2014 by its Solar Dynamics Observatory satellite. The flares that are visible are ultraviolet light from its active regions. Here's the image. See the whole jack-o'-lantern thing in here. All right, and let's take note of this.
Now, I'm sorry to pause early, but luckily enough, due to the slightly fucked up technology of Google, my stream via Google Meet looks like a bag of shit. Now, if the image of the sun was really so much related to the fucking jack-o'-lantern, just take the piss. Even with the image looking like a bag of shit, it should look like a jack-o'-lantern. It fucking doesn't. It really fucking doesn't. So I've taken a screenshot. I'm gonna see if I can post it in chat. No, I'll post it in Discord. Then I'll post it in chat in a minute. It just looks like a weird set of squiggly lines. So
looks like a jack-o'-lantern to me.
Except
it's upside down.
I'm guessing you've got a decent refined screenshot. Mine is at less than 140. I mean, the only thing that looks recognizable is Bert. Everything else is blurry as hell. And yes, it looks like a face. It doesn't look like a jack-o'-lantern. It just looks like a face.
It looks like Charlie Brown to me.
Well, it's also the Pluto image, which is funny because I'm just going to post something in the
they saw
in
heart
the chat.
in Pluto as well.
Yeah. I mean, the amount of pareidolia. I think I did this in a tweet in responding to Monsieur 33UC. I'll just stick that in the chat and maybe. I don't know. Can I send you the image, Tatty, and you put it on the screen?
Yeah, absolutely.
But I was going to say, I thought I'd have a bit of a laugh, and and just show that this whole pareidolia thing. I'm fucking better at it than they are.
Yeah, I was going to say, AB, if you paste the link into Discord and then copy that link address that comes up and paste it in YouTube. As long as they've got Discord, it will come up with that link. Oh,
yeah,
I
posted it in the chat. I know technology. But yeah, I mean, if you look at the image, I mean, I clearly figured out that Diglett is in there from Pokemon. There's a bear or a fox. There's a weird worm thing. There's a dragon, and also a description of 33UC. And it took me about 5 minutes to make that one.
Looks like a kitty cat. Let's go.
Right, so that's not coming through. So and we'll just.
Can I take one moment, please?
Absolutely.
Chris O. No, it's fucking blurry. I'm not that fucking drunk. I double checked my image. I blew it up to full screen. That picture of the Earth fucking looks weird. Even bigger. It fucking looks weird.
And that's what wine does to you. Shit starts looking weird.
All right.
Well,
little play button, little triangle.
What is... Can I just make one quick point, please, Bob? He's gone quiet. It's fine. Pareidolia and alcoholism. As your brain slowly becomes more intoxicated and disconnects from the real world and starts, the shapes and the image become blurry. If that image really means what it means, you should still be able to distinguish it after a short while. As the disconnection between the image and your brain reflects more quickly, I am actually a perfect example right now of, that doesn't work because my brain is fucked. I should still see that image quite well. But because I am fucked, the image doesn't locate in my brain properly. That made sense to me. I hope fucking made sense to someone else.
It makes sense. Essentially, he's trying to say that he's shit-faced. He's not picking out the patterns because he is shit-faced. So if the image were actually there, then surely he should be able to make it out because his cognitive processes are inhibited due to the vast quantities of cheap wine. Yeah, it's not working.
You want that?
Fuck off! It was
Image up.
£9 a bottle.
Yeah.
Image coming up.
It's not cheap. But Roger Rabbit, thank you. Yes, I'm not ducking funk.
Yes, it is.
Thanks, Bob.
So it'd be that's the image up.
Okay, that is the image up. So, yes, I think you'll find very clearly that we have a Mickey Mouse, and then we have a Pokemon.
Clap your hands.
We see a dragon. We see a weird worm thing, something along the lines of a bear or a fox, and 33 you see very clearly.
I think the weird one
Widow
thing.
has eyeballs.
Yeah.
Yep.
I've
Oh
looked
my
at
God.
that several times. If Pluto didn't have eyeballs and a nose, I don't know.
Sylvester?
He might be. I mean, it's very hard because I've seen images of Pluto, obviously without the nose and fucking eyes, and it's one of those looking at it going, would I see it? And I don't know. It's awkward as hell. I mean, the 3 dots, no, that makes no sense. Everything else apart from Pluto, because it's got the eyes and nose, yeah, it makes no sense. Because luckily,
you know what it looks like to me?
What's that?
A softball that's dirty.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, it just doesn't have the stitches, or be kind of like a racquetball that was muddy. That's what it looks like to me.
Yeah.
Therefore,
because it
the
has
Earth
to
is a
be.
racquetball and blue and bouncy.
Yeah. It's
Vote for me.
It's one of the images, and that's go on, reason.
I said it's Photoshop because it has to be.
You're right. I don't think those eyeballs are on the
Fucking
real
hate
planet.
that quote. Sorry.
All right.
Appropriate here.
Let's go ahead and play her on, man. Let's go see if
let's
we
carry
got some
on with the
real stuff
video.
in here that's actually worth debunking.
Okay.
NASA took a photo of the sun in 2014. Okay, they're not saying that's an image; they're saying it's a photo. But here, let's continue reading back here. Come back to that in a little bit.
And how is the difference?
The active regions in this image appear brighter because those are the areas that emit more light and energy, the statement said. They are markers of an intense and complex set of magnetic fields hovering in the sun's atmosphere, the corona. This image blends together 2 sets of extreme ultraviolet wavelengths, typically colorized in gold and yellow, to create a particularly Halloween-like appearance. And
I just love it when
really
he slings
good
these
at
words
covering
like he
their tracks
understands
as
what
far
they
as
mean.
explaining away why their BS appears to be BS. And you notice how they called it image over here, but
Pause.
right on the.
So that image that he's fucking moaning about is made up of a fucking capture based on high levels of radiation and fucking high levels of energy. So it's a composite. Because it's a composite.
Fake.
Because it
CGI.
has to be. Yeah.
CGI.
Basically, Bob,
So
yeah.
we can
It's
hand wave
CGI
off and move on.
It fucking has to be. Because that's not how we see. So you take the piss out of us because we take a picture from satellite that's in low orbit that has to stitch together images to make a picture of the Earth. Oh, it's a composite. It's not real. You're taking an image. Go on, Bob.
You know why the Earth is spherical? It's not. Our eyeballs are spherical.
Oh, fuck off.
That makes everything we see look spherical.
Oh yeah.
Yes, like the
squares.
Like my car.
Yeah, and the door I'm looking at right now. That's very
if
spherical.
if your eyeballs made spheres, what would a QB. How would we be able to describe a cube? What would the true shape of the cube be?
It would be. Wait. I know.
Wouldn't it?
Right, Bob. Can you see the YouTube live chat now?
Yes.
Good. I've got to find the fucking right fucking button. There we go. That one. No, that one. That one. That would be, if you can see my last comment, the top of a square, and that's not a V, but yeah, obviously, because of how our eyes work, that would curve it out. So it's a slash in and a slash out. So
but
the Earth is
would be on all 6 sides.
shaped.
It would be all 6 sides, though. You realize that, right?
Yes. Yes. So I don't care if that doesn't work,
man,
but I'm pretending to be a fluff.
That's deep. Because reasons, right?
Yeah, reasons.
Yes, reasons.
Yeah, reasons.
That's what most flips usually say. Reasons. I actually had a flurf today, and he moaned about Antarctica tours. He said they're all owned by same company, and I was like, well, they're not. And I randomly picked 2 companies. I typed into Google Antarctica tours. I picked the top 2 companies. He said they're all owned by the same. So I went, right, the founders and CEO of this company are X. The founders and CEOs of the other company are Y. They're not the fucking same. He then ignored that point and went on to some stuff by Journalism 2012. I was like, okay, Jeranism proved good.
Well,
no, not that Jeranism, another Jeranism. Oh, okay, you're a fucking moron.
Well, the guy that changed his mind today, seek truth, speak truth, is a rarity. Normally what they'll do is they'll just change the subject. It was like when they asked, who was it, Mark Sargent about meteors. Mm-hmm. Well, they just happen. But, we're very short on time, so we can't talk about this anymore because we're short on time. How many minutes do we have? We got 5 minutes left. Well, in that time, we could sit down and we could maybe go to another question, or you guys could subscribe to my channel, but I can't answer your question because we're so short on time.
Yeah.
Next question.
It makes sense because we had that topic in one of the videos we just viewed. Stars always fall down. Well, down technically to your perspective is towards your feet. Your feet are on the ground. The world is round. So down is always towards the ground. How was this difficult to understand? Sorry, I tried to make a rhyme. It didn't work.
It's astounding.
It really is.
All right.
Down is down, and down is towards the center of the earth. But no, down is opposite to the way I'm standing. No, it's fucking not. Unless you're on the North Pole and they're on exactly the South Pole. Otherwise, it's just based on your position from the globe. Point center.
It's still based on your position on the globe.
Right. So, I have looked at. I've just had a look at the green room, and Mrs. Shigura asked a interesting question, and that's something that has actually been bugging me about the marble. So Mrs. Shigura asks that I still want someone to ask D Marble how he feels about being a part of a group that idolizes open white supremacist Dubé.
Seriously?
And this is a question that that does boggle me. Right? How do certain flat earthers actually reconcile that?
How do women vote for Trump?
Yeah.
That's a real good question.
Yeah.
Or anyone in their family who has a disability. I'm sorry, I can't vote for someone who makes fun of people with disabilities. Sorry, I'll be quiet.
If
now.
anyone in the chat has an answer to that, because this is mind-boggling. Yeah, how does someone like D Marble, endorse Eric DeBay? How do women vote for Trump? Right? I don't understand it.
No, I find it actually difficult to word that question. Not word that question. Word that answer in a way that wouldn't offend at least somebody. I don't think there's a way you could do it with the answer that's not going to piss somebody off. Trump.
Oh, I have the ultimate answer for the Trump question.
Go for it. You're the best qualified person for this because you're at least in the right continent.
How do women vote for Trump? Because their husbands tell them to.
Oh.
That's a controversial response that needs a little bit unpacking.
Well, because I think
it needs
that
unpacking.
because your implication is that women that vote for Trump do it on their own because they admire his values. My thing on it is I don't think they vote for him unless they're told to do it because they're subservient to the people that tell them to do it.
Yeah.
So that's mine. That's my thing.
I'm going to open a box of worms here.
I don't respect people that I don't respect people like D Marble that support white supremacists. And I don't respect people that clearly vote for or support people that have demonstrably demonstrated their contempt and hatred for them.
Yeah. I know we've got to go back to the video, and I feel bad, but I feel like we were opening a box of worms here.
We should probably do that.
Yeah. Bob, I feel like we need you back for a separate stream for this because, especially coming up to the UK election, that's something that needs to be addressed because that's a very good
we're
subject.
not coming back to a separate stream on that. That was a one and only little flash out because I'm frustrated right now.
Yeah, no, that makes absolutely sense.
Fair enough.
There's a lot of politics.
Let's continue with the video.
Image. Let's say NASA took a photo. And this is what we're supposed to believe is an actual photo of the sun. Here. Now, if you go into Google and you actually type in sun through a solar filter, these are the images that you're going to get. Nothing too exciting here, but that's what NASA does. They're just kind of extra with this stuff. You know, it's
Pause,
like
please.
I said.
Go ahead, Bert.
So, I don't know if you guys caught that, but between the many interludes between the beginning of this video to now, D Marble started off with, okay, so here's an image that has been composited from, if that's a word, from various from infrared, or sorry, from ultraviolet and a couple of other light waves. And then he just keeps going on. And then he's saying, but this is a photo. And if we compare it with other photos, we don't see that at all. So that kind of feeds back into this, the view that I have of, I think what's wrong with people who believe in the flat earth. There's something fundamentally wrong with the way that they process information, where they'll shunt a particular input into a completely different category. The article did clearly state that it was based on two different light frequency spectrums that NASA had combined and essentially turned into a photograph that we can actually see with colors. And then in the next sentence, he says, but now it's a photograph. Now, if we compare that photograph with other photographs that other people have taken, it's clearly not the same. So in his mind, he's conflated the different spectrums of light that the sun emits, and has rejected the fact that it's real. And now he's going to go on and say, well, NASA is putting out fake propaganda. So that's basically the way I saw it when I saw that.
Well, absolutely. I think that is very accurate. I mean, if you think about just how we, and it's just about taking a different wavelength as well, right? If you think about just how we take a picture using a standard camera, right? We've got a sensor, and on every pixel there is a little sensor which is sensitive to one particular wavelength, and so each pixel has 3 of those sensors, which are sensitive to the red, the green, or the blue. And actually, every image you take with a digital camera is actually a composite of 3 pictures taken, which is only sensitive to the red, the green, or the blue. It's simple as that. And that's the same thing that NASA have done here. They just took different wavelengths.
Yeah. Now, when I look at it from in a broader spectrum, I think that there's a lot of other factors that are somewhat related but not quite related. And a good example of that is I take the bus to work every day, and there are many times, well, when I have to stand on the bus because it's so crowded, and we're just sitting there and we're creeping up to an intersection, and the car in front of us goes ahead and the bus creeps forward a little bit, but the way that the bus driver has let go of the brakes, I don't even feel the bus moving. And then suddenly, if I'm looking out the window and I see the scenery move out the window, my brain did not register that we were moving, and it completely gives me that the weird feeling of like, what's wrong, and my brain is trying to figure out what's wrong. And then the driver will step on the brakes, and then I'll feel a little tug, and it's like, okay, now I have registered that we have moved. So the fact that I can see clearly being on the bus that we have moved, and I cannot sense it. And then suddenly these people who believe in the flat earth say, well, if the earth was spinning, we'd be able to feel it. Well, it seems that there's something in their brain that has rejected the possibility that there's another alternative explanation.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that kind of comes back to the broader scope of what this particular video is about. That that D Marble is saying, well, I see this, and it's an image, and now I'm comparing it with other images, and it doesn't look anything alike. And now suddenly, I know this one's real, but this one here has to be a fake by a de facto standard fake.
Yeah, absolutely, because a lot of it really comes down to I accept this, I don't accept that, even though because under these conditions I expect this result. So if I change the conditions, I expect the same result. Essentially, that's what they're saying, right?
Yeah.
And because when the conditions are changed and the results are different, then they're saying, oh, because I didn't get the same result as before in these other conditions, therefore it is fake. And that just makes no sense, because independent variables, right? You manipulate one variable and you expect a change in another variable. But of course, their tenuous grasp of the scientific methods, doesn't allow them to understand that maybe if you change a key parameter of something, then your result is going to change.
Yeah, and on that note of the scientific method and changing the independent variable, and it affects the dependent variable. From my professional experience, I've seen in some cases where you have 20 different factors that kind of all work together to produce a certain outcome. And if you're sitting there twiddling and tweaking each individual knob one by one, trying to see what changes, you could be there for a very long time trying to find out what happened.
Yeah, and that's what we do as scientists, right? We change individual knobs, or at least if we know that changing one particular knob is not going to result in a change in the other one, then we could actually feasibly change multiple knobs at the same time. But we can build up an understanding of it, and we can investigate each individual little bit in due course, and that involves what changes if I twiddle one knob, what changes in the other knob, and eventually if we actually spend a lot of time trying to figure this stuff out, then we can build an accurate picture. But that's actually why science is not a very fast process.
That's right.
But actually, you mentioned earlier about the motion due to the Earth traveling, right, orbiting around the sun, the Earth rotating, orbiting around the sun, and then obviously orbiting around the galactic core as well. Actually, funnily enough, earlier today, I did run the numbers. So the more well-known figure is that the centrifugal force, or that's due to the acceleration, or let's say the acceleration due to the Earth rotating, is 0.034 meters per second squared at the equator. Now, that acceleration due to our orbit around the sun is actually 0.006 meters per second squared. And actually, then we consider our orbit around the galactic core, and that acceleration is 0.3 nanometers per second squared. So these are the numbers for that. Do you expect to feel that?
Not one bit.
Even if that speed had been 300.3, based on your point of reference, if what you're standing on is what is moving, would you feel it anyway?
Well, if you're standing on and it's moving uniformly, then you are in an inertial reference frame. That's fine. But we are not in an inertial reference frame. Because we are rotating, that means we are constantly accelerating. And because all an acceleration is, it is a change in the velocity. It doesn't necessarily have to mean a change in the magnitude of it, but it can mean a change in direction. And we can measure that due to the rotation of the Earth, right? Because that changes, and we can measure it. And people in the debunking community have done that by measuring the weight of objects as a function of latitude, and you can clearly see that objects weigh less at the equator than they do at the poles. That's perfectly fine.
I actually took a scale with me when I flew from Detroit to Salt Lake City.
Oh, right.
And measured a mass on the way out to Salt Lake City, down to Phoenix, and then from Phoenix back to Detroit. And I found the mass weighed a little bit more on the way going west than it did going east.
Yeah.
The problem is it wasn't precise enough to be able to get a good number on it, so I haven't done a video on it. But I did do an experiment on my flight.
Yeah, I believe Wolfie did one.
Wolfie did one. Wolfie did an excellent one. So where's Wally?
Yeah, and Critical Think did one. I actually just did the numbers. I ran the numbers on that. It just matches the predictions so well. It is.
Yeah,
it's just
my
ridiculous.
problem was that I used 100-gram weight and 100-gram scale. So on the way out west, it kept reading over, overweight.
Yeah.
And on the way back, because it was such a small thing and you should only have a couple of grams difference, it would vary so much just from the vibration of the plane. I should have brought a bigger scale and used a 500-gram weight, to get better precision. I just didn't have the right equipment.
Yeah, it is something I would like to do at some point with the scales I've got, because we've got an error of very small. We're talking about
AB. What you mean to say is, I want to show off. I work for a university. I've got really cool shit.
Yes, I do have access to really cool shit. But yeah, it is something that'll be.
Well, I was
interesting to see
fortunate.
how well it maps
Yeah, I
out.
was fortunate, and people have supported the channel a little bit, and I was able to get a really, two really nice scales. And as a matter of fact, I just bought a sextant not long ago too.
All right. Well, you can have a little.
It's gone quiet, so I'm going to make the rude joke. Bob, you bought sex. Sorry, I'll go away now.
Pant? Yep. I was sextanting.
While it's
I grabbed
gone
it by
quiet,
the
though,
sextant.
I want to...
I grabbed it by the sextant. Let's get the... Are we done with the movie yet?
No, I want to bring up one very quick point. Where was it? I'll fucking remember. Looking at the pictures behind D-Marble there, someone in one of the YouTube groups brought up a video that was presented that showed solar radiation as that. And someone said, no, it doesn't look like that. Look at this. And he showed what was written on the side as an ND15 solar filter. And what it showed was a completely washed out fucking picture. Now, to get a picture resembling what is on the screen behind D-Marble, you needed ND1000 upwards to show that this flat earther thought an ND15 was going to give the same sort of result of what is expected of an ND1000 plus.
Well, the main thing that would prevent the main difference between the 15 and the 1000 is that the ND, that's neutral density filter, which means that it's not going to block out certain wavelengths. And a 15 would not block out that much, whereas 1000 would block a lot more. So the only thing the guy would do is basically burn his camera out if he zooms in too far.
Yeah, and I'll be fair, the image but looked like, when you've got a really crap photo and you take a picture of something that's behind glass and it just reflects back and you get that sort of washed out image. That's what this guy's image looked like, and he was trying to say, no, the solar filters don't work. It was that general sort of flirt logic of, no, it doesn't work because I say so. I was like, okay. I said nothing in that chat because everyone else quite happily ripped the poop out of him. And everyone's gone quiet. This is not good. Someone laughed. Thank God.
Well, that was
this the other day, and I thought it was me who disconnected, and it wasn't. But yeah.
Well, I do have a good comment, if it's okay.
Go on, Amy.
Thank you. TC Lucas says most of the wavelengths NASA films the sun in are not wavelengths we can see with the naked eye. What D. Marble said is more than just disingenuous. And he's right.
No, that's true. Flirts have never been the best at making fucking comments that make fucking sense. Or, after they've been shown their comments are wrong, backing the comments up or apologising for the comments. AB, what do you reckon? Video again? Oh, I think he stepped away for a minute. Very sorry. Tatty, video?
Video sounds good to me. Video sounds good to me. Here we go, folks.
Cool.
You know, we're the ones that can pick up on the fact that NASA's trolling. Also, there's video. One of these is a video of a guy actually looking through his telescope. Yeah, here it is right here. Through a telescope with a solar filter on YouTube. And it's a short video. It's about 46 seconds along those lines. But yeah, it's just a guy zoomed in with a solar filter with his telescope. And actually the image that he has is a lot bigger than NASA's because, I mean, you know, they want you to believe that the sun's 93 million miles away, which it's not. But this guy with his telescope was able to zoom in closer than NASA. Think about that for a little bit.
Oh, well,
but like I said, we're the ones that know it.
He was not able to zoom in closer than NASA. Can we rule that fucking out right now? He is going to play on the fact, look, those bits are black, those bits aren't. And as Bert said before, because Bert's awesome, if you haven't Bert's channel, go subscribe now. It depends on the level of filter, and as Tattie-Bogle says, it depends on what wavelengths you're looking at.
right.
Yeah, these are not. Go for it. Fucking hell, I'm losing the plot here. From the level of stupidity of D-Marble, it's just like, I want to headbutt my head on the table, but there's a keyboard in the way. It's like, God damn it. Bob, go for it. Rip him a new one.
Still there, Bob?
Huh?
Bob?
What do I do now?
Well,
how rude. He wasn't listening to me. I purposely brought you into that, Bob.
Maybe
I
I
heard
can step
my
in.
name right at the end. I didn't hear the beginning.
Yeah,
I was
maybe
saying
can step
about
in.
solar filters, wavelengths. Want to headbutt my head on the table because D-Mobile doesn't understand these things. He was
D-Marble
saying
doesn't
that
understand
the person in this
anything.
video. Sorry, Bob. Go on.
Yeah, well, Sarcastic. You started
D-Marble
this.
doesn't understand anything.
You started this.
doesn't.
You started this pause, Bob. Sarcastic, by saying that the guy with his homemade telescope almost was able to see closer than NASA could, and I would
Galileo was awesome, wasn't he?
Yeah. I would not have enough information to prove or disprove whether that statement was true or not, but it could very well be that if NASA took these particular photos from a space probe that was farther away and the optics were not calibrated to take the sun in full frame, whereas somebody with a half decent telescope could zoom in, I could accept that as being a true statement, but really I don't see enough information for that.
No, I don't either.
To
You
be
know, the
honest.
original telescope was very much on the order of a 22 rifle scope, something you buy in a dime store. I mean, it just had a couple of, a couple of powers on it, a very, very small tube on it. I think the aperture was about the size of a centimeter or so. So,
Bob?
the stuff they have right now is just amazingly better than that.
Well, and I think it's also important to remember that I think that D-Marble is just referring to how much space the sun in one picture populates compared to another. And it goes, oh, well, that's obviously a bigger zoom because the sun appears to be bigger in this picture. The feature size is also important, right?
He's
I'll agree with AB. Bob, I think you miss a little bit of it. he was trying to say in the video that the resolution, everything on the image provided by NASA was not as good as the image provided by an amateur astronomer with his telescope, basically.
Resolution's resolution, man. You can use, you can always downgrade resolution to make it easier to transmit to news agencies. I mean, that's one of the reasons that we compress photos.
No, I fully agree with that. I just wanted to put out when you said the original telescope and things like that, I wanted to make sure we were both on the same page.
What's the point in having a 10 tetrapixel photograph if you want to print it in a newspaper? What resolution do you need to put a photograph in a newspaper? Obviously you're going to be using a tiny fraction of the resolution that the original images has. It's kind of like those moonshots that they do. Says, oh, look, it's a square. And then they Photoshop in a square. What they do see sometimes is they see a little bit of artifact around the areas of contrast from the compression and the JPG compression. But if you look at the original images, which are much, much higher resolution, you don't see stuff like that. So because it's a lower resolution photograph that we're looking at doesn't mean the original was that resolution.
Yeah, so we have to transport. We send data out to news agencies, and we send these pictures out, all over the world, and stick them up on websites. But on the background, you have to realize that all this data from all the different telescopes, it's not being transferred over the internet. Right, we're literally just sticking them onto hard drives and then shipping them via plane because the data files are so large that the internet, in all of its glory that it is today, is still, the connections we have are still not powerful enough to efficiently transfer data. So we get data dumps from Hubble, and actually what happens, you stick them on hard drives and you post them to each other, and they'll get shipped to you via airmail. And FedEx on this day is still one of the largest pieces of the data exchange infrastructure that exists.
Aimee, you've got a comment.
The way I see it is D-Marble is just trying to compare apples with pickup trucks. I mean, here we're looking at some images from amateur astronomers taken with home equipment, and their intent was to get as much of the sun in the frame as they could so they could see some detail with a filter. Whereas the image from NASA was taken by a highly sophisticated and advanced piece of scientific equipment, specifically calibrated to separate the various light frequencies so that NASA has the widest quantitative value of data that they can use to understand the sun. There's no comparing.
What's worse than that, Steaming? The base resolution of those two images, the NASA one might actually be better, but because NASA will take that image and put it in a format that most websites will take, most desktops will take based on the resolution of a desktop. They go, most people have 1080. Yeah, we'll do it like that. That's fine. The original image might be a higher quality than that to start with, but without having the original information and checking the details, we'll never know. But I know Amy's dying to get in for a comment, but before she does, speaking of images, I have literally just posted an image in chat that contains several hundred, if not thousands plus images from the Apollo moon missions for anyone who's interested in looking at them.
Cool. What do you got, Aimee?
Yes, please. Mr. Shigura says flirfs always try to shift the subject to one particular image photo they want to nitpick because they know if they are lost if they look at the sum total evidence instead.
Interesting.
Again,
Yep.
it's very true. If you look at one image, it's going to give you one input. If you look at 20, 30, 50, 100, 1,000 images, it's going to give you a more broad understanding. Something that probably AB Science could comment on much better than me, whereas doing one experiment with one result and looking at many, not just experiments, but observations will give you a better understanding of a situation. Please do.
Sorry,
I'll tell you something that I did on my channel, and D Marble was the one that was responsible for it. I started looking at these laser tests and such, and these observations over water, and after doing 10 or 15 of them, I basically said, look, I'm not even going to look at observations that are less than 40 kilometers from sea level to sea level. If it's elevated, I won't look at it. If it's less than 40 kilometers, I won't look at it. Because the variation that you get is so much that, it's meaningless. Oh, well, only 4.5 feet is obstructed, and it should be 6 feet obstructed. Who the hell cares? The other
that's
thing
also the other thing. It's to assert that the Earth is flat. For them to say, oh, only 4.5 feet is obstructed when you actually expect 6 feet. No. If the Earth is flat, 0 feet would need to be obstructed.
Yep. And then they make stuff up to try and, claim otherwise. Yeah. It's all got to be shoehorned in. I think maybe the next rule that I'm going to establish for the channel, and maybe you guys might want to consider adopting it yourself. You have an image that looks like it's got a rectangle around the sun or the moon or the earth or something or other. Fine. I want to see 100 images from the same mission of the same features, and I want to see this on every one of those images. You go through them and point them out for me, and then we're going to go through them one by one and look at them. But you have to show it to me on all 100 images.
Well, there's also another point here, right? We're talking about NASA data and the images. Actually, if you look at the raw data, a lot of it, they're just text files. They're not images. They're just text files containing the RGB values or whatever, whatever intensity each pixel measures for a given frequency. They don't really come out as nice little like JPEGs, which are easily portable. No, they come as rough and dirty text files.
Yeah, I was thinking of
that's easier to transmit.
Yeah, I was thinking of what you guys were saying about the different equipment, and I think that we have to remember too that there are certain design constraints in each particular piece of equipment. Somebody who's got a local telescope and they've got it on their back porch and they're looking at the sun, it doesn't really have to be very well. I mean, it has to be rugged enough to be moved around, but it's a completely design consideration, different design consideration than a space probe that has to measure a wide spectrum of electromagnetic frequencies coming from the sun. And you can't turn around and launch a space probe that's the size of 10 city buses just to be able to get like 50 gigapixels. So there's probably a lot of trade-offs in the image itself, and it may very well just simply be lower image, lower resolution, but the frequency of the spectrum that it does capture is like infinitely more than what somebody can see in their backyard through an atmosphere.
Well, that's also the other issue, right? Because we're talking about, we're talking about resolution as in spatial resolution in what the layman would be concerned with in in an image, you know, how many pixels have you got in the X direction? How many pixels have you got in the Y direction? That's fine. But when we're talking about these kind of probes, it's not that simple, because, you know, we're talking about higher dimensional systems. Like, yeah, we've got resolution along X, we've got resolution on Y, but then also we have to consider the resolution along energy, so the wavelengths. So and then we also have to think about time. So suddenly you have you know, you're trying to render a 2D image, but that actually comes from a 4-dimensional data set. And that's probably even more that comes with it. It's really complex. You know, like what I will do at so what I recently did at Diamond Light Source, which is one of the UK's kind of main synchrotron facilities, is we will take an image of something and we will set the detector to be sensitive to one particular wavelength. And then we will take another image, which of the same thing, another particular wavelength, and we'll do that sequentially over a range of wavelengths. So any information we can gather out of that is, yeah, so what is the resolution of each particular individual image? But then at what steps do we image that, over what wavelengths, and the step size in those wavelengths? And then we're trying to do time resolved stuff with that as well. And every dimension you add, you don't just add a little bit of data. It's you raise the resolution. So I've got, say, 1,000 pixels in one image, and then I want to take an image over 1,000 steps at different energies. So suddenly I'm not dealing with 1,000 bits of data. I'm dealing with 1,000 squared bits of data. And then suddenly, okay, I want to see how this changes with time as well. And then I want to take 1,000 steps over a few seconds. And then suddenly I've got 1 billion bits of data. And this scales very large. You know, it scales very quickly. And you have to take in account of that. And, you know, and as I said earlier, this is one of the reasons why, for example, Hubble, you know, all of that data is transferred via airplane, because the internet doesn't have the bandwidth yet, and our networks don't have the bandwidth to transfer that data. It is faster and cheaper to actually just store it on a hard drive, put it in a plane, and send it across the world.
AB, I just want to say, you're fucking awesome. Because I was going to make a point about these images that D-Marble is showing, and basically stating that these images, what we see as a physical image is not so much as what the data and what NASA are actually wanting from the file that originally comes. And you word it so fucking well. You can tell I'm the person who pours the pint and you're the person with the fucking brain cells, mate. Fucking well done.
I like pouring pints. I used to do that for a living.
Well, guys, we got about 6 minutes of video left. Shall we continue on?
Yeah, let's crack on.
Well, can I just stop before we do? Because it's 3:20 in the morning. I'm up in 5 hours for work, so I'm running away. I'm very sorry, but I've got less than 5 hours sleep before I get up for work.
Do not
Bert,
run a bar
once
on a
again,
hangover.
you are fucking awesome, mate. Hope to catch you again soon. That was a great stream. AB, as always, you fucking rock. Everyone else in the Shills, you're awesome. Streaming Cup of Reason, you're awesome too, because you come out with some fucking awesome stuff that I can think of. So, and Tatty, keep pressing buttons.
Oh, yeah.
No star roll.
Yeah, yeah.
No star.
No, sir.
Right, Trips.
Okay,
Prepare for some stupid.
Being
let's
trolled.
do it.
Another good opportunity to pick up on how we're being trolled is a couple of these throwback stories. Like this one, for instance, is from Metro CO UK. That is, NASA wants to probe deep
Love it.
into Uranus in search of smelly gas. Yeah, this is a real story. So let's look into this a little bit. Scientists stunned the world this year with the revelation that Uranus actually does smell like farts, and NASA probe could soon actually breathe in the fumes. Yeah, they went there. Amy Simon of NASA's Ice Giants decadal study group told the Gravity Assist podcast the next mission to Uranus should use an atmospheric probe. Yeah, this is them trolling you again. So anyway, I mean, we could look at.
They're just doing some tongue-in-cheek humor. That's all.
Yeah, it's not trolling. Sometimes the results are funny. I've just seen the chat. Multi Tom thinks he will debate me.
Nice.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Interesting. I am willing to take you up on that. I'm tempted. Anyway, yeah, it's a funny story. Shit like that happens all the time. You do science, and funny things happen. Like in my field, there is an object called a particular object called a nanotube, right? And the acronym for that is NT. But you can make them out of different materials, like copper. And the chemical symbol is Cu. So if you imagine what happens when you publish a paper on copper nanotubes.
Yeah.
Funny shit happens.
Oh, no kidding. I love that.
But yeah, I think they're trolling us, but
fun.
we have a sense of humor. It's simple as that.
And that's all these stories are showing, that scientists are capable of having some fun and then being tongue-in-cheek about what they do. And it's just some lighthearted commentary on what's going on. That's all these stories are.
Yeah,
but he's making it like they're trying to fool us with something.
Yeah, last month there was a publication being put out about some archaeologists trying to cut into a bit of pig's hide with frozen shit. I mean,
yeah.
People do funny shit, and there's some funny but also interesting stuff. In fact, we have in the science community, we have an entire award ceremony dedicated to research that sounds really stupid and really funny, but actually has some real value. And these are the Ig Nobel prizes. And Google them because they're funny as hell.
Well, they do that with chicken guns and aircraft windshields. They actually have a gun. They shoot chickens at aircraft to see whether or not it'll penetrate the windshield.
I think, and I am very sad to say that they've stopped doing this.
No.
Yeah, they've started just using computer simulations now.
Oh,
because they've got the theory that they understand the theory so well that there's no need for experimental. Yeah.
Well, it's fun when you forget to thaw them and they take the tail off, you know?
Yeah. But yeah, they've stopped. I mean, fortunately for the chickens, but unfortunately for the comedy, they've stopped doing it.
Interesting. But you'd think, even with all the ability to duplicate that via computer simulation, wouldn't there still need to be at least one or two actual physical test runs to make sure the product that the aircraft manufacturers are producing actually hold up?
Well, there's a reasonable argument for that, and I would agree with that. But there is a point to which where if your simulations become so good that
Yeah,
that they reproduce the experimental results within so well, then maybe it's all right, let's not kill the chickens. But on the other hand, I would quite like a thoroughly tested aircraft, so
yeah,
maybe a few chickens are gonna go.
yeah, I agree.
I would rather the chickens went. Definitely.
All right, let's continue with that video, Tatty.
This, like, first thing right off, NASA wants to probe deep into Uranus in search of smelly gas. You wonder if Beavis and Butthead's in charge of the NASA marketing department when they're coming up with this stuff, or somebody along that same line of maturity. But no, this is a real article. Now, people with common sense would look at this and say, obviously they're being trolled. But no, NASA took it a step further, and there's a follow-up article on this one. This is from the Science News Reporter. And they're explaining this. Now let's look at this one. Uranus opens and closes every day to let out hot wind, according to scientists. And according to scientists, it was determined that people will believe what's said as long as you say, according to scientists. Yeah. So this is the image that we have here. These two little blue balls and then the smoke coming out of the... Yeah, they actually did that. Uranus is all over the place. It spins weirdly. Its magnetic field is off center. And now we've just found out it may open and shut its magnetosphere every day too. The research at Zen Cow and Carol Patey from the Georgia Institute of Technology was published in the Journal of Geophysical Research, Space Physics. Got to throw that in. Stuff that everybody doesn't understand. There's only a specialized group of people who understand the concept of space physics. Modeling the system around Uranus, they found that its magnetosphere occasionally opens up to allow solar wind through. This seems to happen almost every day, about every 17 Earth hours. Okay, now, let's say we actually do believe this. Let's read back over this. Modeling the system around Uranus, they found that its magnetosphere occasionally opens up to allow solar wind through. Now, real quick, let's get on a freestyle here. Distance of Uranus. We're just gonna go into
this
Google.
is so sixth grade.
Of Uranus.
It's beautiful. I love it. I love it.
Distance
of Uranus
at its closest distance, the distance of Uranus from the star, I'm guessing they mean the sun, is 1.7 billion miles away. At its furthest, it's 1.89 billion miles away. On average, the planet travels between 19 times as far as the sun as the Earth does. Okay, so it's determined that in the solar system, Uranus is much further away from the sun than the Earth. Okay, obviously, because the sun's 93 million miles away from Earth, and it's 1.7 billion miles away from the sun. Okay, Uranus is, that is. So, with that in mind, and the Uranus, the magnetosphere occasionally opening to allow solar winds through, why don't we deal with solar winds on Earth? I mean, since we're so much closer.
All right, okay, that was it for me. Firstly, those pictures were fucking funny. Come on.
They were, man.
I mean,
they were great. Sixth grade, but great. Now, there is a part of me that is amused by sixth grade humor.
Yeah. Firstly, it's sixth grade humor, but yeah, Mr. Shiguro kind of he raised the comment that summarizes it. It's almost as if publications write amusing, eye-catching titles in order to get people to actually read articles about otherwise possibly dry science topics. Weird. Yeah, that's it, right? It's funny because
kind of the way it's done, though, isn't it?
yeah, it's kind of the way it's done. It's sad that it has to be done that way, but you know, it catches people's eyes, and you know what? The whole article and a picture with, you know, the duplicates of the planet to make it look like an ass, and yeah, it was funny. But then he talks about, how does Earth not have to deal with solar winds? There's this little thing called the aurora that kind of shows that. It's, yeah.
I have a couple comments, if that's okay, if I could jump right in.
Go ahead.
Great.
Please.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Shigura says, it's almost as if publications write amusing, eye-catching titles in order to get people to actually read articles about otherwise possibly dry science topics. Weird. And then Mandelbrot said, did you know that methane has no odor? And then Mr. Shigura says, I don't understand it, therefore nobody does. And that's his quote of D. Marble. And then Mandelbrot says, the Science News reporter also publishes satire that is not labeled as such, and his source is from MediaBiasFactCheck.com.
Yep.
So that's an interesting
solid
thing right there too. Yep. Yeah.
Consider the source, people. Consider the source.
Exactly. It shows D. Marble's level of education. It's not pronounced your anus. It's pronounced Uranus, the real non sequitur.
Well, I would argue that because I prefer to call it Uranus because it's funnier.
Because it's Uranus.
Because it's fucking funny.
You know, the one thing you got to worry about with these journals is not all journals are equal. I remember a couple of years ago, there was a professor down at the University of Florida, I believe it was, that went to a website that all you had to do was put some authors' names and just click some boxes to kind of give the thing direction, and it would generate a 10-page scientific paper of nonsense, including graphs. And
yes,
he did a couple of them, and he submitted them, and they were approved for publication in some of these, you know, I Love Me journals. You know,
it's
kind of like getting your picture on the front of Time magazine. You can do that at a lot of booths and stuff.
Yeah.
Then you frame it and put it in your office, and people think you're important. Well, you can be a published scientist that way.
Yeah, not all journals are, you know, created equal. I mean, hell, homeopaths have got a peer-reviewed journal.
Let's just consider that for a moment in silence.
Yeah.
A homeopath peer-reviewed journal.
Oh, man.
I think that's about enough. Sorry, carry on.
And that's the thing. There's me going, yeah, I've you know, I've published in Nature a few times, and yeah, great, wonderful, and exciting, and I've got, you know, a pretty fucking good publication record considering I haven't even finished my PhD yet. But then homeopaths and their journal. Shit.
Peer reviewed
because yeah. Oh God.
You know, I'll tell you a true and tragic story. I was in Phoenix a couple of weeks ago for a convention of internal medicine doctors, and I went to this thing where they said medical marijuana, what you should know about it. And I'm figuring, oh yeah, I think I've got to go to that one. So I get out at 7:00 Sunday or Saturday morning, and I go to this little seminar, and he says, well, let me tell you about medical marijuana. And then he puts the first slide up. Who's on the first slide? What two guys are on the first slide?
Jay and
Cheech and
Silent
Chong. Cheech and Chong. And, did they mention Thomas Chong's advanced prostate cancer? No. So I listened to this dribble that they do. And they start talking about how they only want peer-reviewed studies and, evidence-based medicine. And they go, oh, yeah, just out of curiosity, how does osteopathic manipulative therapy rate as far as evidence-based and peer-reviewed studies compared to medical marijuana? And then, it was kind of like listening to Mark Sargent answer a question about meteors the other day. I'll probably give the talk next year.
Good plan.
Crack on. Sorry, that was my one little moment of reminiscence.
Yes.
We've got about 1:18 left on this video. Do we want to finish it off quick?
Yeah, let's kill it.
Finish him.
Roll it, Tatty.
Sir, I mean, is that something that only happens to these other planets? I mean, is that something that we have to deal with here on Earth as far as solar winds?
Absolutely.
It's just something to think about, because if we're so much closer to the sun than Uranus is, and Uranus has to open its magnetosphere once a day to release solar winds, Earth is a lot closer to the sun than Uranus is, apparently, according to the globe model. But we never hear about the Earth's magnetosphere having to open up to release these solar winds.
It's always open.
Just a little something
Keep
I
going.
was thinking about a second ago. But anyway, that's just, how NASA trolls us with these things. But yeah, this is what we got. Basically, we get a good daily dose of indoctrination from these folks in order to continue this globe propaganda, this whole space fallacy, keeping that whole thing intact. But yeah, gonna go ahead and end this one. How do people not know that we're being trolled with this stuff? That's one of those things that I wonder at this point. But anyway, let me know what you think in the comment section below. I'll post links in the description to these articles so you can go check them out for yourself. Verify that, yeah, they actually put these things out there.
All right, let's shut this one.
In search of smelling gas.
Bob, you had something you wanted to say?
Yeah, we do know we're trolled every day, and you're doing it.
Yeah,
Marvel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because nobody can be that stupid.
Exactly.
It's pretty obvious that the solar wind and the Earth's magnetosphere do interact. That's how we get the aurora, both north and south. And how far down, how far south, at least from the northern hemisphere. That's my bias. Sorry about that, guys. But how far south that reaches depends on the level of the magnetic or the solar activity. So, if you get a 1 or a 2, you're just right up around the pole. You get a 9, you're down in freaking Antietam, Maryland.
Yeah. And not only that, Uranus is a huge gas giant. God knows how many times bigger than the Earth. Of course, it's going to operate in a vastly different way. Earth is a smaller planet, and our magnetosphere is more of a filter to protect us from harmful rays and let through the good ones.
It's kind of like a force field. And if I'm not mistaken, isn't Uranus the one that's on the side, or is that Neptune?
Yeah, it's got a really weird kind of axis of rotation.
Yeah, one of them is actually 90 degrees to what we would consider normal.
Yeah, I think that's that Uranus is kind of like that. Uranus is angled, well, in a weird way. You see why I like to use Uranus rather than Uranus?
He said Uranus.
I like
yeah. Uranus is at an odd angle.
Is it sideways?
I think it is. I'm not 100% sure. I'm not an astronomer.
Well, rumor has it.
Yeah. Uranus is sideways.
Yep.
Anybody else want to chime in?
No, I think that's about enough for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, the only other thing I wanted to say about this was that we really are comparing steaming up a reason, how you put it, apples to pickup trucks.
Exactly.
I mean, I don't really know what the composition of Uranus was. Is it a gas giant or is it
No,
or is it like a rock or something like that? But the other thing too is that the Earth has a molten core which is generating our magnetic field. So as long as that doesn't collapse, it's not going to let back out the solar winds. In fact, it won't. Most of the solar winds, if I understand correctly, are being stopped. What is it? 500 miles up or something like that.
Yeah,
something like
that is about right. So we've got this magnetic field being generated by the Earth's core. It creates this magnetic field, and we've got because like the solar wind, right? We're talking about charged particles, and they interact with the core, with the magnetic field, and therefore they are deflected and they change direction, and that results in the release of photons, and that's what we see as the aurora borealis or the aurora australis.
Yeah.
Essentially,
beautiful sight. Beautiful sight. All right. Anyone else?
Sure, I have a comment too that I just looked it up too. Uranus rotates on its axis once every 17 hours 14 minutes. Like Venus, it turns in a retrograde direction, which is opposite to the direction of Earth and the other 6 planets. Its axis is at 98 degrees, which means it almost lies sideways as it orbits the sun. And the source for that was planets.org.
Uranus is sideways.
Yes.
Yeah, Uranus is sideways. just like D Marble's brain, it's sideways.
If it exists at all.
Well, what do you say we go around the table and wrap this thing up and say our goodbyes, folks?
I'm up for some of that, man.
All right. Well, why don't we just go around one by one and see what's up? Barman's left, so AB. Any thoughts on the stream?
Yeah, I mean, D Marble is an idiot as normal. Now, I feel a little bit bad about being mean about D Marble because from everything I've seen so far, aside from his, slightly, occasionally a little bit aggressive rhetoric, I reckon that he's a pretty decent dude. So, I don't want to be too mean about him, but he's a fucking idiot. From the chats, Multi Tom Tom. Well, I don't really do debates, but I am willing to make an exception. Get in touch.
Yeah, please do, Tom Tom. That would be fun to see. Thanks, AB. How about you, Aimee?
Yeah, I do feel bad for him because he seems to fall for this stuff quite readily. It's really kind of sad. At least that's what it looks like on the surface. Sometimes I lean towards Poe, but other times I'm just looking at him thinking, yeah, he kind of believes this stuff. You know what I mean? It's yeah. So I'm not really sure, but yeah, I'm leaning towards Poe.
Excellent. And how about you, Tatty? What are your thoughts?
Oh, my thoughts on D Marble are probably unbroadcastable, even for the show. But let's just say he's got Poe written all over him, man. I mean, Edgar Allan would be proud. Edgar Allan would be so proud of that, man.
That's awesome. All right, and let's go to our special guests for some final words. Bob? Are you there, Bob?
Uranus.
Yeah, so what are your final thoughts? Anything you want to tell us about what you got coming up and such?
Well, let's see. D Marble was somebody I looked at early on and just quickly went past. I do believe he's either a Poe, in which case we shouldn't interact with him because it just gives him the attention that he wants, or He probably has an IQ of around 80, in which case he doesn't need us pointing out the fact that his IQ is around 80. Well, let's see. What do I have coming up? You know, I've been doing some of these live streams and then editing them and shortening them, cleaning them up and shortening them and putting a little stuff into it for broadcast in the morning. I kind of like doing that because I don't have to sit down and do a bunch of cuts and everything and use the green screen. So I'm going to take a moment, I think, and do a few of those. And my subject is going to be an old subject, and it's going to be approached from, these are the wrong ideas. Let me show you how to figure this out correctly. And we all know who I'm talking about. Balls Out Physics, Brian Mullins. I'm going to go through each one of his things and point out where his errors of reasoning were and how to correctly figure these things out for homeschool science, and just basically to answer a lot of questions that people ask but don't quite know how to phrase, or they don't seem to come up when they want to know what the answer is. So we're going to talk about navigation and Coriolis and all of the things that gravity and all the things that he talked about in his 25 episodes. And I'm going to do them as a live stream in the evenings, and then I'll release them a couple of days later in the morning.
That's awesome. That sounds really interesting. So everybody,
I think it's
the
really
other thing
cool
I'm
that
going
you're
to hit
kind of
is
cutting them down.
aerospace.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Bob.
Bob? Did I just kill Bob?
Oh no!
Am I here?
Yeah,
You got me.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right.
Go ahead.
Yeah, the other thing that I'm going to work on is a series on aerospace. But yeah, the approach is not going to be Brian Mullins is an idiot and a danger to society as a civil engineer or a structural engineer. It's going to be, here is a smart person making an error in understanding and not setting the problem up correctly. Let me show you the correct way to set it up, and then we'll solve it together.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. Make sure you keep an eye on Bob the Science Guy's channel, everybody. It's going to be a really interesting series by the sound of it. And moving on, Bert, anything you'd like to share with us?
Well, I don't really have too much to say. I have stated earlier that honestly, I'll leave the debunking to other people and to take apart these kinds of videos. I do still have a lot of videos and projects that I'm still planning to work on, and those will probably keep me going for quite some time, actually. So I'm looking forward to continuing those and to show a few really interesting and possibly niche devices that are really designed to fit a very specific task, and to see how I can use that, or how accurate it can be in the end. So I've got things on the go, and it's getting pretty late actually, because I probably would have been in bed 45 minutes ago.
All right, well, we'll help you get there. Sounds like there's going to be some good stuff coming on your channel. And on a side note, thanks everybody. We got Bert up to 73 subscribers. That's awesome. Anybody out there who still hasn't done it, get over to his channel and subscribe. Show him some love. It's going to be some good stuff coming up there. And on that note, I think it's time for us all to say goodbye. And remember, if you ever get caught in an argument with a flurf, just say no.
No.
That's it, folks. Thanks for coming out. Everybody say good night.
Good night.
Good night. Bye.
See you all soon.